Hi there, it's Wendy Hernandez with Command the Courtroom. So yesterday I met with a potential client and he had a question for me about what constitutes significant domestic violence. And of course, the answers to this question will probably depend on where you are, your jurisdiction, your state, your country. But I will give you the advice that I gave him or provide you with the information that I gave him. So in his particular case, on one occasion, his girlfriend punched him in the stomach. And it just happened that one time over the course of their several-year relationship, and it happened recently. And this is definitely an act of domestic violence. It's assault under most criminal statutes. But I'm not sure that a judge, at least in Arizona, would consider that significant domestic violence for purposes of making a decision on a child custody case. At least in Arizona, a judge is really looking at whether significant domestic violence has happened in a relationship before it will affect the judge's decision on custody and or parenting time. So what is significant domestic violence? Well, domestic violence can be significant by virtue of the nature of the act itself. And there are some cases where a single act is so severe that it is considered a significant act of domestic violence. So as another example, in a case that I had a couple years ago, my client's wife got really angry with him for something and she took off one of her shoes. She just beat the heck out of him on his back, and she beat him so badly that he was red and he was bruising. Police were called, and it just looked terrible. We went to court on that case because they ultimately got divorced, and the judge was just astonished at the level of damage that the wife did on that occasion. And he found her act, even though it was the only act that she committed against my client during the course of the marriage, he found it to be a significant act of domestic violence. And that influenced the judge's decision, and it resulted in the judge giving my client sole decision-making authority. So that's just one example of where a singular act could be considered a significant act of domestic violence. Another thing that could cause domestic violence in a relationship to be significant is the length of time that domestic violence has been happening. If domestic violence has been happening over a series of months or years, as I have in some cases, then that domestic violence could be considered significant because there's a long history there. And while, each individual act may not necessarily be that severe, if the acts have been going on for quite some time, then a judge could look at that significant history and use it to make a decision on decision making or child custody or parenting time. So regardless of who you are, if you're a man or a woman and you are thinking that maybe you're a victim of domestic violence, the first thing is I would document it. I would document the acts that happen. And you may never need that documentation, but if you do, at least it will be fresh in your memory. And certainly if you think it's necessary, certainly if there's blood or bruises, I would call the authorities. I would call the police. Keep in mind that there may be other ramifications for the other party besides just custody ramifications. In some cases, I've had opposing parties who were medical professionals, for example, nurses and doctors, and having that strike against them or that act of domestic violence and a conviction down the road affects their ability to practice in their profession. So, to wrap it up, there's two ways, in my view, that domestic violence can be significant. One is by the nature of the act itself, and if it's severe enough, then that could be significant. Or if domestic violence has been happening in the relationship for a long period of time, then that could be considered a significant history of domestic violence. I hope this helps. Remember to give this video a thumbs up if you like it. Subscribe to Command the Courtroom on YouTube. Go to commandthecourtroom.com for more information about how you can represent yourself in the family law courtroom. Like us on Facebook. If you know anybody who could benefit from these videos, be sure and pass them on. Until next week, remember to keep on trucking and command the courtroom.